So the news is that Fire Red and Leaf Green, the Nintendo Switch ports that came out right before Pokemon Day this year, it turns out they sold 4 million units, right? I'd like to talk today about what this might mean for Pokemon games, Pokemon ports, re-releases of these classic Pokemon games. I'd like to talk about what this news might mean for those things for the rest of this year, maybe into next year, and let's start with that. And I guess also I just also want to preface that I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I understand the inner workings, or if I can even imagine what the inner workings are, or like what these sales figures actually mean to Nintendo, to the Pokemon company. Because a quick 80 million, I mean, listen, that's not nothing. But we all know that the Pokemon games is not really where they get their money. They get their money from merchandise and all these other things. But I want to focus, I just want to focus on possibilities today. So, Fire Red and Leaf Green, pretty awesome. It's been a decade. These games mark the first time in a decade that we got Pokemon ports in any regard, right? And this is something that I had been championing and like just asking for so long. I'm so glad we actually did get Fire Red and Leaf Green, right? I think that's just like a good thing in general. If you're a Pokemon fan, like these classic games, they do not become invalidated when a new remake or a new version of these games come out, right? And yeah, there's so many reasons why it's good to have these classic games available to newer players or to old players, but just have them available to purchase. And I'm so glad that we actually got Fire Red and Leaf Green. I'll start there. I'm pumped because I have been playing these games and I feel like Kanto has re-entered the zeitgeist, and I'm so happy to see it, right? I will say, I guess this whole thing, right? Actually, before these sales numbers even came out, I think you can make a very good point for why Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald might make their way to the Nintendo Switch. I tend to believe they will no matter what. Currently there's nothing else slated for the rest of 2026, the 30th year anniversary. There's nothing else slated. We have Champions updates, maybe Pokopia DLC, but there's no mainline game. I honestly am expecting Fire Red and Leaf Green, I'm expecting Ruby and Sapphire to come out at the end of this year. And then next year, maybe Emerald gets ported as well, right? And there's so many reasons, right? There's so many cool things that could be added to these games that, truthfully, like, most people have not even like messed around with, right? In Fire Red and Leaf Green, it was pretty sick. I think I was anticipating them to add, like I was anticipating that they would add new features or like previously or lost event Pokemon mythicals, legendaries in Fire Red and Leaf Green, like things that were originally in the games but have just been inaccessible to anyone who has only played on cart. And they did that. We basically, if you play through Fire Red and Leaf Green, you can now get Deoxys. You can also get Lugia and Ho-Oh. And Deoxys also has multiple forms, depending on which version of the game you play, which is kind of cool. Those are available for the first time. That's awesome. That's like a huge win, right? And that Fire Red and Leaf Green, they did that. That's awesome. And so if we get Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, which I will say, I guess, looking at these numbers, to think 4 million units times $20 is $80,000. Like, I mean, I'll be honest, that kind of breaks my brain. I actually don't even think I can quite comprehend $80 million. It's insane. That is insane. And of course, they're not making it quick. They also spent money on marketing, but that's a lot of moolah. I guess I am looking at this being like, come on, like please let this be a sign that Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald are going to make their way, that other Pokemon ports are going to make their way over to the Nintendo Switch, right? And I guess I'll say, if Ruby and Sapphire do make their way to the Switch as ports, we could also see a lot of additional mystery gifts, legendary Pokemon, mythical Pokemon being added. The events that I've highlighted right here are Mostly, I think mostly in Emerald. Some of these you can get, but mostly they're in Emerald version. But if they port all the way up to Emerald, it's kind of sick because we can actually obtain Mew through Faraway Island in the mystery gift, or not mystery gift, but the item you would get and you would need to unlock a boat trip to the Faraway Island, which is an in-game location to capture Mew, is the old sea map. And once you beat the game, I think they would just give it to you right there. Like, that's so sick. This is like literally the only place we've ever seen Mew in the wild other than Pokopia. It's the Faraway Island. It's supposed to be like in lore. It's supposed to be somewhere in like South America, which is kind of sick. I mean, that's just awesome. Like, come on, like for the 30th year anniversary, allowing people to capture Mew for the first time, that's a huge W. You would also be able to get Deoxys on the what is it? I think it's called Birth Island. You would need the Aurora ticket to go to Birth Island and to get Deoxys. And I believe it would be it might be. I'm trying to think if Deoxys in this game would be a specific form or if you could change it. But just to capture it alone would be so sick. I think that's the thing that, like, I don't know. Like, I think people like just kind of forget this. Like, maybe you've seen these screenshots, but you can't get it on cart. I have all these games on cart. But being able to, like, porting these games to the Switch gives them so much flexibility to, again, not only give these games to a wider audience of people, but to also unlock essentially additional content, which is so sick. And then, again, you would be able to get Ho-Oh and Lugia just like you were able to get in Fire Red and Leaf Green, but you can do it again. And the dogs are barking. Sorry about that, guys. I'm doing this in one take. The dogs are barking. I wonder what they're barking at. But you could also get Latios or Latias. You get the Eon ticket, and you essentially get the other Lati that you normally wouldn't be able to get. And that's just so sick. I mean, I feel like this type of, like, collect-a-thon was, like, in terms of legendary Pokemon, was not really available until, or I guess was not really common until, like, the Gen 4 games, which I do want to talk about a little bit, right? But the DNA was always here. It just, you weren't able to do it if you didn't get these mystery gift events, which, to be honest, I never got these. So that would be so sick. And I guess I am kind of predicting that. Like, I think because Fire Red and Leaf Green sold so well, and because it happened at the beginning of the year, and guess what? There's nothing else slated for the next 7 months of the 30th anniversary. I really think it could be possible that we get Ruby Sapphire at least dropping at the end of the year, which would be so much fun. And also, it's like in Fire Red and Leaf Green, there's a whole leg of that game that is literally the only original purpose of that was to give you access and to be able to basically unlock the ability to trade with players of Ruby and Sapphire. So if they put Ruby and Sapphire out on the Switch, guess what? Now we can all trade with each other. It doesn't matter which it doesn't matter which port you have. You've got it. So I don't know. I don't know. When I look at this, I really think when I look at the news that these Kanto ports just were so successful, and essentially, I guess another underlying part of this is that they sold as many units as Pokopia, which is like the games aren't competing with each other. They're doing different things, and people are also buying these games because of nostalgia. But I mean, that's crazy. That just shows the hunger for classic Pokemon games. These games are great. People want to say the Pokemon games suck, but like these classic games are great. They're so great. They always will be. But though, I guess I kind of want to also take a look at everything that we could possibly get over the next couple of years. If we don't get Fire Red and Leaf Green, if we don't get Ruby and Sapphire, there is also a small possibility that we get Red and Blue. We get Yellow version, Green version. We get Gold, Silver, Crystal. These are the games that were ported to the 3DS. And I think, if I haven't said it before, I guess I hunger, right? I yearn for a time, the 3DS era, when you could play every single Pokemon region in some capacity on your 3DS. And the Nintendo Switch is like kind of getting there. You can definitely play a lot of games on the Switch because it's the Switch and the Switch 2. But all the 3DS games are missing, right? All those regions are missing. Some of the DS games are covered, but you don't have Johto. We have Kanto now. I guess we've always had Kanto with Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. There's so many games, right? Experiences, really, that's what it is. It's not only the games, but it's like these classic games, which I feel like are so tied to the identity and the appreciation to the cachet, right? These games are so valuable inherently and represent what it means to be a Pokemon fan. Like, these are the memories. These are the access points to our memories with these Pokemon games. And it's like, if you're not a fan of the new ones, even if you... No. If you are a fan of new Pokemon games, still, those games are entirely different from these older ones. And I think there is an opportunity that we get Gens 1 to 2 games ported on the Switch. But, I mean, I really think I would want Ruby and Sapphire. And if we had Gens 1 through 3 on the Switch, that would be great. But I also almost want to get a little greedy, right? There's so many... Like, porting these classic games on the Switch, again, as we've seen with Fire Red and Leaf Green, gives Pokemon the opportunity to bring in new, or I guess to bring in old Pokemon events that have just been so under, I guess maybe just like inaccessible, right, and underappreciated, and to bring them into the fold essentially as new content. And I think that's really, really cool. Something else I guess I also think about is, like, with Pokemon Champions, and they don't need to do this, but like with Pokemon Champions, if they were to release, if they were to release these Generation 3 Hoenn games, and then all of a sudden you could bring all those Pokemon into home, like, they could say, I guess they could use it as an excuse to basically give us like a new meta, right, in Pokemon Champions, or for those players, right? You could be like, guess what? All of these Gen 3 Pokemon are now available in Champions. And you can play with them in Champions. That's kind of fun. And then all of a sudden, it's like, while we're playing, like the everyday person, another 4 million people are playing Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. Like, the competitive people, right, could be using those Pokemon and be incentivized to get Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, collect your favorites, bring them into home, bring them into Champions, and then battle with them competitively. I think that's kind of cool. That's like a fun little ecosystem, right? And you know what? I guess I want to say one more thing that I just thought of, right? That maybe not enough people are talking about. Maybe not. It's that, like, Fire Red and Leaf Green made a quick 4 million units. But I would argue that I don't think Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald would actually make this same level of impact. I don't think as many people would get Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. I don't think. Fire Red and Leaf Green, you got the 2 Kanto mascots, you got Charizard. Like, what are we talking about? These games are going to sell more than anything because it's Kanto, which isn't a bad thing, but I'm like, I don't think we should expect 4 million units sold for Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, or even a lot of these other games. I don't think. I really don't think. Okay, but what I wanted to talk about before we close out right now is the fact that I think some Gen 4 games are on the table. Not this year, but in the coming years, I think the Generation 4 ports are on the table. I absolutely do. There was, and I didn't prepare this, I didn't pull it up, but there is a patent. There are images for a patent for a dual screen attachment that you could put onto a Switch 2. This came out a couple years ago, and it's been circulating ever since. And but I feel like it's kind of gone under the radar. I feel like if you want to just, I mean, yeah, if they're actually making that device, I would imagine that they're essentially waiting to reveal that device for a time, and then to be like, guess what? You can get, I mean, I guess Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, but I'm like, we've already got the chibi versions, right? And that is a faithful remake. I guess we could see Heart Gold and Soul Silver ported, right, onto the Switch, maybe onto the Switch 2, and it works with that additional screen. And now you're essentially 3DS, you're living the 3DS dream. You're living the DS dream on your Switch 2, playing Heart Gold and Soul Silver. right? Maybe playing black and white, right? And then, if I gotta be honest, I actually think some of those games could actually rival the 4 million units sold. I don't know. Because they feel like such more... They feel... I guess maybe in some ways it is... In some ways it is a little superficial to say that, like, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, like the DS games, right? It's a little superficial to say that these games are graphically better, therefore they're better. But they also have way more content. I mean, Heart Gold Soul Silver literally has 2 regions. It's got the following animations. I mean, these games are extremely popular. I would actually say, I think the games that are most hyped up as like all-time Pokemon games, I think the ranking collectively as a community, like popularly, I think it's Heart Gold Soul Silver number 1, Black 2 and White 2 number 2, and then it's like a toss-up for either Platinum or Emerald. But I really think these Gen 4 games could be in the conversation. And if Heart Gold and Soul Silver, if they are ported in any way, without a doubt, there will be new in-game events that will be unlocked for the very first time. We got right here. This is something that I've personally never done, but I've seen it a million times. I believe this is coming from Cerebi. If you trade Arceus over to Heart Gold and Soul Silver from Diamond, Pearl, or Platinum. Okay, so that gets a little bit weird right there. So maybe you wouldn't be able to do this because you would need to trade a Pokemon into this, right? But if you bring Arceus to the Ruins of Alph, to activate the special Sinjoh Ruins, you will meet up with Cynthia, the former champion of the Sinnoh region, and then that famous cutscene plays where you get an egg. And it's either a Dialga, Palkia, Giratina, but it's that cutscene that plays, I believe, that shows real world live action footage, like real world pictures in the game. Like it's like a mind melting moment, right? It's like you get to see the entire universe all at once, in this game, and that's something that personally I'd never experienced on my game, and would be pretty legendary to actually play through, right? In Heart Gold Soul Silver, we also have the spiky-eared Pikachu event, which, again, I've never played this. I have not. But you get this shiny Pikachu. What is it? The special Pikachu-colored Pichu obtained from an event or Wi-Fi, or over Wi-Fi. A special feature will activate. This event takes place in the Ilex Forest. When you go by Celebi's Shrine in Ilex Forest, when you have the special Pikachu, the special Pichu, another Pichu appears, and it's got the spiky ear. This is like what we've heard about, it's called the spiky ear Pichu. I've never played it. I've literally never played this. And then it says, interesting. If you inadvertently evolved the Pichu into Pikachu, or eventually a Raichu, the event will still work. Interesting. Okay, I didn't even know you could do that. I didn't even know you could do that. I didn't even know you could. I assumed you couldn't evolve those Pokemon. But this is something that, again, could be made available if Heart Gold and Soul Silver are brought into the game. And I think I also want to say the other event that I don't think I've ever played, is the special event where you get Celebi and you literally go back in time. To fight Giovanni. And you get to see Giovanni literally talk to his son, Silver, your rival. Like, it's kind of crazy. These events that were blocked away, or just have been inaccessible for 15, 20 years, is kind of nuts. I would love to see these games, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, ported for these specifically. And then if we want to move over to Generation 5, I've got some things pulled up for Black 2 and White 2 specifically, but there's so many Pokemon that you can get in this game that I've never gotten in my game, in my cart. I've played these games a million times, and I have not got these games in a cart I've never experienced these mystery gift events because they're not available, right? You can get Victini. You can get a Landorus with the reflecting mirror. That's kind of cool. You can get Keldeo, right? The secret sword of justice, right? You bring this 3 swords of justice, and then there's the Trio Master, Keldeo, the mythical Pokemon. And then you also have Meloetta, right? Like, and then Genesect. Oh, yeah, then there's Genesect. I almost forgot about that. Like, it would be so much fun to actually play through these games and get these Pokemon. To me, for the first time, on one hand, I'm not holding my breath at all, but really, I do think it could be possible that the Switch 2 has, like, that we find out that this apparatus, this dual screen, actually could be real. They bring, they make it available, and we actually get some Pokemon ports over the next couple years, right? Especially if Generation 10 is not releasing until, I mean, that's kind of the thing, right? Generation 10 is not releasing until likely the end of 2027. We got a year and a half to kill. And I see a possibility where some of these games start getting ported. And then even after Generation 10, like if Generation 10, this is a whole other conversation, but if Generation 10 drops, right, and we find out we're starting to look, like there's a possibility because Generation 10, between Generation 9 and Generation 10, there's a 5-year gap. There very well could be another 5-year gap between Generation 10 and Generation 11. And I expect Legends games, I expect Project Seed, I expect some additional DLC, but I also think there's just this beautiful opportunity to give us more Pokemon ports. You guys let me know what you think. I know I would eat these up. Let me know. Do you think this is all overblown? Is any of this possible? I really believe Ruby Sapphire is a lock for 2026. Or early, I guess before Pokemon Day 2027. That's what I think. Let me know what you guys think. I'll talk to you soon. Let me know what else you want me to talk about. Peace.